Another ship watches Titanic die. It never moves. It is 20 to 6 in the morning, April 15th, 1912. On the Californian, a small freighter stopped for the night at an ice field. The chief officer shakes the wireless operator awake. "A ship has been firing rockets in the night," he says. "Find out if anything is the matter." The operator pulls on his headphones, and another steamer answers. "The Titanic has struck an iceberg. She is sinking." The officer of the midnight watch had counted those rockets for an hour, 8 of them, and his ship never moved. How does that happen? The Californian, a freighter bound for Boston, no passengers, just a crew of 55. Next to the Titanic, she would have looked like a rowing boat beside a ferry. The evening before, at 20 past 10 by her own clock, field ice appears ahead, wider than the darkness can show. Her captain does the careful thing. He stops the engines and waits for daylight. Her only wireless operator warns the great liner, somewhere south of them. "We are stopped and surrounded by ice." The Titanic's operator taps back. "Shut up. I am busy." Then a light shows on the black horizon. Another ship, coming closer all the time. The third officer studies her. "A passenger steamer," he says, "with a lot of light. And as far as the captain knows, only one passenger steamer is near them that night, the Titanic." At 20 to 12, the strange ship stops, and her deck lights seem to go out. The third officer supposes she has put them out for the night, but a ship turning away would hide those same lights. Which is it? Midnight. The watch changes, and the second officer takes over the bridge. He is in his mid-20s, with 8 years at sea. "Watch that steamer," says the captain. Soon after, he lies down in the chart room 1 deck below. A brass speaking tube runs between the two men. At 12:15, the off-duty third officer looks in on the operator and tries the headphones. He hears nothing. The set can only hear while its clockwork is still running, and that clockwork has run down for the night. Nobody winds it again. Out in the dark, the Titanic has already found her iceberg, and her distress calls have begun. At 1:45, a soft white flash rises over the stranger. On the bridge, the second officer's first thought is a shooting star. There were several about that night. He reaches for his binoculars, and 4 more bursts follow the first. White rockets, breaking into stars, minutes apart. One detail will matter for the rest of his life. The rockets hang strangely low, as if they rose from somewhere beyond the strange ship, as if another ship lay out there. At 1:10, he whistles down the speaking tube. 5 white rockets over that steamer. "Are they company's signals?" asks the captain. He means house rockets, fired so a ship can show which line she belongs to. "I do not know," the second officer answers, "but they appear to me to be white rockets." "Go on, Morsing," says the captain. The signal lamp clatters into the dark. Nothing answers. "Look at her now," the second officer says to the young apprentice beside him. "She looks very queer out of the water. Her red side light rides strangely high, as if the ship were leaning." Some time after 1 o'clock, the second officer says it out loud. A ship is not going to fire rockets at sea for nothing. And he stays exactly where he is. By 20 to 2, he has counted 8 rockets, and the stranger is sliding slowly along the horizon. He sends the apprentice below. "Wake the captain, be sure of it." 8 white rockets, and she is disappearing to the southwest. The apprentice opens the chart room door. The captain is lying there with his eyes open. He listens. He asks whether the rockets held any color, and he asks for the time. He orders nothing. The boy answers with the time, 2:05. by the wheelhouse clock. Then he shuts the door behind him. By 2:20, the last of the stranger's lights has faded. It went gradually, thinks the second officer, like a ship steaming slowly away. The apprentice sees no turn and no stern light, only darkness. At 2:50, the second officer calls down the tube once more. She is gone. Again, the captain asks about the color. All white, comes the answer. Just white rockets. And the captain does not come up. At 4:00, first gray, the chief officer takes over the watch and hears a short version of the night. Were they distress signals? He asks. I did not think so, says the second officer. I told the captain 3 times, twice down the tube, once by the buoy. At 4:30, the chief officer wakes the captain himself. The second officer saw rockets in the night. The captain answers in 8 words that follow him for the rest of his life. Yes, I know. He has been telling me. Should we not go south and look? Asks the chief officer. No, I do not think so, says the captain. She is not making any signals now. The chief officer tries once more, carefully. Perhaps that steamer has lost her rudder, and the captain finally gives an order. It comes more than 4 hours after the first rocket. Go and call the wireless operator. It is 6:20, the moment this story began. The operator listens, and the news travels up to the bridge. The Titanic has struck an iceberg and is sinking. The position is already hours old. The careful ship comes alive and crashes through the ice at full speed. The distress position holds nothing but empty sea. The Titanic had radioed a spot 13 miles from where she really sank. By mid-morning, the Californian reaches the rescue ship, the Carpathia, and asks whether she can help. The answer is no, and the Californian's logbook never mentions a single rocket. In Boston, the crew talks, and the newspapers print it. That is what drags the Californian into the inquiries, on both sides of the ocean. In London, the wreck commissioner tells the second officer, "You do not make a good impression upon me at present." Why wake up the poor man? The commissioner mocks, meaning the captain. Because it was my duty to do so, the second officer answers. And it was his duty to listen to it. The court holds the officer's own training against him. Rockets like these mean distress. He has one defense. A steamer that is in distress does not steam away from you, my lord. Then the court turns to that chart room door. The apprentice swears he went in and delivered his report. 8 rockets, 2:05. The captain remembers only a door opening and closing and an unanswered, "What is it?" Both versions go on record. The captain fares even worse. "Why did you not wake your wireless operator?" asks the court. "It did not worry me," says the captain. And then his own answer condemns him. "If we had woken the operator, we would have got the Titanic's signals." The truth of the matter is plain, writes the commissioner. The ship they watched was the Titanic. Had the Californian pushed through the ice, she might have saved many, if not all. And so, the case closed. The ship that watched. The captain who would not wake. That is the story. Thanks for watching, and see you for the next one. Hold on. England reopened this file 80 years later, and the government's own reappraisal split clean down the middle. One inspector concludes that the 2 ships lay 5 to 7 miles apart, and that the ship they watched was Titanic herself. The other, writing in the same report, puts them 17 to 20 miles apart. In his reading, the Californian watched a 3rd ship, never identified, while Titanic lay beyond the horizon. How can both be true? The air over the freezing water lay in layers that night, and layered air bends light. It can lift a ship into view from below the horizon. It can also make a bursting rocket look far lower than it climbed. The captain's own words, "A most peculiar night." It is a maybe, nothing more. But on one point, the split file agrees. The rockets were the Titanic's, and they were seen. And morsing at them fell far short of what was needed. Would going have helped? If the two ships were close, perhaps many could have been saved. If they were far apart, the Californian would have arrived long after the sinking, and the file is blunt about that. Then it adds one line. The attempt should have been made. One rule did change. Since 1948, a distress rocket is red. Red and nothing else. Had that been the law that night, says the file, the second officer would not have stayed passive. And about the men on that bridge, the file closes with one line. There are no villains in this story, just human beings with human characteristics. Boiled down, another ship watched Titanic die and never moved. A captain heard about rockets and asked what color they were. A young officer talked himself out of what he knew. The rockets were real. The watching was real. Nobody went. And two questions stay open in the official file to this day: how far apart the two ships truly lay, and whose lights the second officer was watching. The officer of the midnight watch told you this story himself, under oath, more than a century ago. His name was Herbert Stone. This is him. 2 nights before that iceberg at a first-class dinner table on the Titanic, the talk was about a mummy. The man who spread that story had been telling it for years. He did not live through the sinking. That story is next. That was the ship that watched. Boiled down. If you like big things made small, subscribe.